Hey, welcome in. You know why we're here, folks. It is June and we're creeping in July. You know what that means? It's time to dive into redraft season. In redraft season, what are we talking about? We're still talking about the rookies. I know we're in dynasty mode still, but we're slowly transitioning. What we want to focus on this episode today is all the rookie running backs, the landing spots, how they fall, who we're fading, who we're in on. So stick with us on this episode of the Fantasy Football Universe, and we'll talk about those rookie running backs for you. And we're back, baby. We are live and rolling. We got 3/4 of a full house here today. That's pretty good for us. So if we get 3 out of the 4 heads, we're happy here. I'm with, let's see, which side is that? That's Desi Romero on my right, the left. And then we got Jeremy Schulman on my left. Welcome in, boys. How we doing today?
Doing good, man. Doing good. Like you said, you know why we're here talking rookies. If you're playing Dynasty and you're just like not talking rookies at any given part in the season, you're not playing Dynasty, right? I mean, rookies, prospects, breakouts, all that. You're talking football all year round, and that's what we're doing. So, excited to be here.
Yeah. We've been hyping up these rookies.
And if you're talking redraft right now and you're not talking rookies, then you're missing out on value. Rookies always the most valuable pieces to collect in your drafts late, and they hit usually second half of the season. So let's go through these guys and figure out what the heck we're going to do and who we're placing our bets on in 2024.
Yes, sir. We've been highlighting the ambiguous backfields the past few days. What we're going to talk about with these running backs in these situations, we're going to go off of Fantasy Pros half PPR ADP. So we're going to go down the list of the rookie running backs. By the way, this is the cheapest running back class I've theoretically ever seen. The most expensive running back is RB28. So you're not paying premium cost for any of these guys, which with Jonathon Brooks, that's an entire whole discussion. I think that's really stupid. But I'm also the Jonathon Brooks stan. I have an insane amount of him on my rosters and fun stuff like that. So let's transition into Carolina really quick. Is Brooks going to be the guy in that for you, Jeremy? Or basically, are you thinking maybe there's some other people in that backfield?
Yeah, I was, trying to look up Chuba Hubbard's stats from last season, and I stopped doing it because I don't care. No, it's Jonathon Brooks, 100%. It's when he's healthy, he's the cow, right? He's the bell cow. He's going to be the guy carrying the mail. Chuba will mix in, I think, just to kind of make sure that Brooks is healthy. I don't think he's really the type of back that they want to give the entire load to, but he's the clear-cut 1A. 60-65% of snaps in his first season if healthy. I think he's a monster and a monster value at the moment.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you. Where are you standing on this backfield, I see?
I mean, same thing, Brooks. In redraft, I'm not necessarily targeting him. I know people are heavy on him, but I just don't know when he's going to be back on the field. So for that reason, I'm not necessarily choosing him right now. Dynasty, great buy. He's going at the back end of the first and rookie drafts there. I would, get the cuff, or actually, if I draft him because I have that first, I maybe try to trade that first for the guy that does have Chuba to be like, hey, man, I have the value right here for your guy that's going to take over this role, and maybe try to get a top end wide receiver or something like that. Out of this backfield, I kind of want to stay away just because I don't know how the offense is going to run. Bryce Young didn't really look great. They got a new offensive coordinator, new coach there. So that stuff could change. But they also brought in a lot of receiving weapons for Bryce Young. So Brooks is a very solid runner. What's he going to do post-injury? Typically, I fade the running backs in the injury because that's so detrimental to what they do and having the step and the aggressiveness to break the tackles. He's RB1 for a lot of people, so I get it, but I'm probably fading him just because I don't want to take that risk of when is he coming back, playing that, and if you have the extra spots, sure, but I'd rather go after someone that I know is going to be getting some playing time week 1, especially in redraft. For Dynasty, man, if I have him, I'm trading for 2025 first. I'd rather try to get, a running back coming out next year than spend that first round capital on Jonathon Brooks this year.
Yeah, I think we look at it completely we're flipped on it, and that's totally okay. And that's what it is, right? I think the interesting thing is who the backup running back in the situation is going to be. Like Miles Sanders was so atrocious last year. Chuba Hubbard just basically took his job, even though he's making the money. Are you guys kind of thinking that it's basically Chuba as a 1B in that situation? He's going to be running the show until like Brooks is fully healthy and ready to go? Or do you think it's something maybe like he's still competing with Miles Sanders and Miles Sanders actually makes an impact this year?
Yeah, exactly. That would be really difficult to like see Miles Sanders come in and make an impact this season. One thing that was interesting though that I was just looking at is between Sanders and Hubbard, 85 targets combined at the running back position. If we kind of, look, I know Bryce Young is a rushing quarterback. He's not necessarily checking down, and he wasn't always the guy there last year. I think there was some injury and he didn't start the season right. So those numbers probably look a little bit different for Brooks. But I think if we're saying the second half of the season, if Brooks is the guy, if he's healthy, if he's getting those snaps, I think he's far and away more valuable than any other running back on this team. You're not going to want Chuba. You're not going to care about Miles Sanders if he's still on the team by the end of the season. They need to move on. And I think Brooks in the back half of the year could be a points per game guy where he's approaching RB1 numbers, if not mid-range RB2 in points per game.
Yeah, I think, 100%. Go ahead.
No, I could say they signed him to a 4-year contract, like $24 million last year in Miles Sanders. So with them bringing in Jonathon Brooks, with Chuba Hubbard looking better, honestly, he might be like a buy low because of the investment they have. Like if a 4th round pick, like why, if you had that spot, why not take that risk on going after a running back that they invested into? And yeah, they grabbed another running back, but who's to say this new guy coming in says, actually, Sanders, we want to use you. We saw what he did 2 years ago in his last year in Philly, but and I say buy low, like don't go out there and I wouldn't give a third, but again, 4th, 5th round draft pick. I mean, those are normally dart throws anyway. So in a sense, it's like, you're not losing anything. Why not go out there and grab him? And then guess what? If he actually becomes the starter before Brooks comes out, you actually hit some lottery picks, some good pick there. So a buy low in the sense of just a hope that something changed because they had an investment in him. And he signed till 2026. So he still has a couple years on him. So they're either going to try to get rid of that or they're going to just eat it and be like, all right, we actually have to use him to actually get something out of this money that we used.
Yeah, they have a dead cap hit of $2 million next year and an $8 million cap hit. So more than likely for Miles Sanders, like he gets cut going into next year because it's $10 million cap hit this year. Like they really don't want to eat that money unless he's just as abysmal as he was, which was part of the problem going from Philadelphia, the best run back in line, to like Carolina, and they were atrocious last year. Now with the upgrades they made to the interior offensive line, the guards in the center, it's probably a much better situation. So it depends. Like Hubbard's just been the better back, so maybe it works out. But I think to your point, if you want to go pick up one of these guys until Brooks is healthy, if you're worried about it, I think that's a good way to get cheap points. Yeah, that seems fair. Like we'll see what happens in it. There's some interesting intrigue. Let's shift over to a team that we're a little bit more uncertain of. And the next pick is the Arizona Cardinals with Trey Benson. He's a little bit behind Brooks, which is kind of interesting. He's RB 35 on the year. I've heard bold and bullish cases on Benson where people are saying he's going to take the job from Connor. And I've heard other people saying like Connor was really good last year. Like I don't see him giving up the work to Benson. We'll start out with USC. Where do you kind of lean on this running back room and how it shakes out?
Is he going to take the role from Connor? No. If Connor's healthy, he's not taking it. I mean, just Connor is a natural back in what you want for a team. He just knows how to get between tackles. He could be your goal line back. He is a pretty good pass catcher as well. He's not getting 70 targets or anything like that, but he can still catch the ball. Benson was my RB1. I really love the way he moves. I love his one step and go kind of deal. He could be a workhorse. He could be the guy. He has the size to do it. Injuries are a concern for some people. I am drafting Benson, but not with the intention that he's going to go in there and compete and take the starting role for him. But Connor is an older back. Connor has struggled with injuries in the past as well. And I think if Benson does get that shot because they had to rest Connor or anything like that, then it's going to be a lot. Then we'll have that talk. Is Connor taking over that role, what he does in the NFL and seeing him produce like that? So I don't think he does. If going to use Benson, don't get me wrong, but Connor's going to get a bulk of those shares. But I do love Benson. I'm trying to target him where I can because I think he is the future of the Arizona Cardinals. I think they really liked him. I think they invested into him. Granted, again, next year is a very nice drafting class, but they, got on day 2. So I don't see them drafting a running back in the first round or another one in day 2 when they, could get one in the 4th or something like that. So I do like Benson, but Connor's the guy in 2024.
Where are you at with this, Jeremy?
Yeah, same. I'll take a shot on Benson because I think it's possible that second half of the season, maybe he naturally eats into some of the Connor workload. Maybe the coaching staff wants to give him more of a look, especially if Arizona isn't competitive. I think we expect this offense to be pretty good. We expect Kyler to bounce back. Obviously, we've got Marvin Harrison Jr. in the fold, Trey McBride. So the offense should be solid. Jesse shoving his tits in my face right here, but we expect the offense to be solid, but the defense is going to be terrible. So if as probably is likely, if Arizona just loses a ton of games, is out of contention early, it's possible they sit Connor down. I'm not sure of his contract situation. Jesse, is it possible for you to look that up for a second?
Yeah, I got it right here. He's unrestricted free agent.
Okay. So that's the thing, right? If they are going to, figure out if they're going to let him walk next season, maybe you just hand it to Benson down the stretch, really give him a couple of games where you see what he looks like in this offense, especially if everybody like Kyler's healthy before you sit him down. And that's going to be prime time for fantasy playoffs, right? So it's possible that Benson could turn into a league winner if things hit properly. It's a big, it's a big if, but it's at least interesting to the point where in redraft, I'll take a little bit of Benson late and see what happens.
Yeah, I think it's particularly interesting with Benson and Connor. Reminds me of a couple of years ago in Tampa Bay where Rachaad White was coming in. They had the established veteran Leonard Fournette. White had a role, but it wasn't a substantial role. But the offense was so good, he was still like a top 30 back. Like Leonard Fournette was like a top 8 back, I think. Like he was really good. And with Kyler Murray coming in last year, the targets were a little bit diminished because he didn't play the entire year. Like usually he's pushing over 110 to 120 targets to his running back position. Last year they only had 83. So I think it's going to spike up those running back targets because we've seen Kyler check down plenty of times in the past. So I think it works for both these guys. But to your point, they had the most draft picks of any team. So I think if anybody's going to take a jump up, and particularly that defense, they could be in contention where they're like trading towards the end and Benson has a bigger role than he started out with because that's what kind of we do with running backs, right? And the younger players, they slowly build up and build up and build up with Connor. So I think starting off, it's probably going to be Connor taking over and then slowly going up. But it's a fun backfield to invest in because there's a lot of upside in this offense. Like I know we talk about they have Kyler, they have Marvin Harrison Jr., Trey McBride. They don't have a lot outside of that. So theoretically, both these running backs can be valuable for you.
And then you just mentioned league winner. I mean, the years back, Kenyon Drake was the league winner for some people when he was with the Cardinals. And it wasn't, I would say that, I mean, he played good, don't get me wrong, but it was because he had fresh legs. He got traded from Miami at that time. It was late in the season. If you had him, he had fresh legs and they used that. So, that could be something to Jeremy's point where Trey Benson, they're just like, hey, he's actually fresh. Maybe we're saving Connor for the playoff run, so we're going to use Trey Benson at the end of the season there just to build up on that and get some experience here. And then, Connor comes in as well. I really like Arizona. You brought up their rookie draft. They basically drafted a damn whole new team. I don't think they had 22 picks, but it felt like they had 22 picks, So they drafted a whole new team. They got a lot of studs, So I'm excited to see what they do, especially with Kyler. A lot of it depends on what Kyler can do for that team, but he has the weapons now around him, or some pretty good established weapons, and now he needs to come in and fill that role. And Trey Benson and James Conner will definitely be a good 1-2 punch for him.
100%. I think it's go ahead.
I was just going to say, and those money games at the end of the season, right, through the fantasy playoffs, starting in December, they get the Vikings, Seahawks, Patriots, Panthers, and Rams. So not exactly a murderer's row of defenses to deal with. In fact, it's pretty nice for the offensive pieces there. So I'll take my shot on Benson for sure.
Yeah, I think, and it's interesting you brought up the Rams because they're the next team we're going to target. So we might as well transition to them. Blake Corum is RB 37. He's going off the board. And I really think people just don't know how to treat this backfield because Kyron Williams was a true bell cow because he's undersized. He's not fast. People are still kind of holding that against him. So it's weird to see his ADP kind of be in that spot because I'm still not sure how his backfield shakes out. Like I personally think it's still Kyron Williams' backfield because they had no one else there. But at RB 37 cost, I think there's contingent upside for Blake Corum because he's basically a doppelganger what he does. So I'll start with you on this one, Jeremy. Where are you going with the Rams backfield? Are you targeting that rookie running back? Or are you avoiding it? Where do you kind of stand on the backfield?
Yeah, it's super interesting to think about what Sean McVay has done and could do with the running back position. It really doesn't matter. We all loved Todd Gurley years ago, and he basically just tossed him aside, and the next guy stepped up. But whoever it's going to be, it's going to be a valuable guy for fantasy. I'm putting my money on Kyron Williams. I think he's going to maintain most of this role. We saw Blake Corum last year in college score 28. Something ridiculous touchdowns, most of them on the ground. I mean, he was an absolute monster at the goal line, and he's bigger than Kyron Williams, not by much, but he still is. So it's interesting to try and figure this out, but I'm just going to go with the guy who did it last year. I think Corum eats in, but this offense is still going to be one that gets in the scoring position, that is moving the football up and down the field. And I want my money on Kyron at least for one more season. In Dynasty, I'm going to sell the crap out of him immediately. But in redraft, I'm happy to pick him as my RB1, maybe in the early second round, wherever he ends up going.
Yeah. And the one thing I will say about this backfield is the most surprising thing is like Kyron was the bell cow because he basically got all the work room. They were last in the league in running back targets. Nobody checked down less than Matthew Stafford. So I do wonder if that's sustainable. If he loses a little bit of that role, like how valuable is Kyron going to be compared to Blake Corum? And I think that's the most interesting thing. When I zoomed out, I was like, oh, that's an odd take. I didn't realize that. So SC, how does this backfield look to you? Are you kind of with Jeremy on this? Are you expecting it to be not Blake Corum, sorry. Kyron Williams' role, and Blake Corum is kind of the 1B backup?
Man, I'm complete opposite. I'd rather take Corum at cost because Kyron Williams, you're looking at him as possibly a top 10 back off your board when you come to startup drafts and things like that. And he was actually one of my sell highs this year because of the way the LA Rams just run their offense. I mean, they know how to use their running backs in a committee, right? They know what they need to do to get in front of that and build up on opportunities. And Corum really is another Kyron Williams, and I was in on Kyron Williams before, but then he broke his leg his rookie season, came out last year and had the breakout season. I really think he's already had an injury, during camp, a little minor injury there, nothing to do a true scare about. But I really think that this is going to, I don't think there's necessarily going to be a bell cow here. I think they're going to use them in an approach of a committee to saying, hey, we're just going to keep y'all fresh. Like, we don't want to overdo you in the sense, because I feel that's something that downplayed them last time, is like you're slowing down a little bit here, right? So I'd rather take Corum at cost. But again, in that situation, I think if you're drafting Blake Corum, I'm targeting the Kyron Williams owner for something, maybe a second and the third round pick, something a little bit higher than what you pay, because you're probably drafting in the second round of your rookie drafts here. So I'm trying to target them to get that cuff there, to be like, hey man, I have your guy, and we already know he's been injured before. Here's something just to give you a little bit, maybe get a wide receiver 2 or something like that. At cost though, I'd rather go after Blake Corum, because when you're getting Kyron, there's probably still some elite wide receivers. And I know Kyron had a great year, and you can say he's elite RB. He wasn't elite RB last year, but our RBs fluctuate, outside of your CMCs, your Bijans, maybe ETNs, Gibbs, those guys I feel are elite. Where Kyron, I feel like, man, I don't want to give him that title yet. I want to make sure it's like at least 2 seasons of doing it again, because he's been hurt. We've seen it, but then he also got the workload last year. But also, they really didn't have anyone to really challenge him last year. Yeah. There was really no one else in the backfield. Blake Corum can challenge him and get some of those touches. So that's where I'm a little hesitant to say, hey, there might actually be this 1-2 for them in Kyron and Blake.
Yeah, 100% to your point. I think there are few offenses that do a better job of targeting the best players in their offense. It's similar to Miami. It's like you want the high value touches guys on that. Sean McVay does a great thing with that, and same thing with Josh Daniels down in Miami. Those guys really concentrate to the best players, and we saw this last year. It was Puka, and when Cup came back, Cup was a little bit diminished, but it was still Cup, and then it was Kyron, and that offense revolved around those guys. So if you're seeing a diminish in Kyron, it's going to be interesting. Then I'd say, yeah, absolutely target Blake Corum, because there's value there in that. If you still think it's going to be Kyron, I think this is the offense where you can just be like, you know what? I'm stamping it on it. He was like an opportunity share. Like, he was better than CMC. Like, that's just absurd stuff for an undersized back end. That's really hard to like sustain year over year. So I think this one's interesting. But like, when it comes down to it, it's a good offense with Matthew Stafford. He's a good quarterback. There are like worse things than just investing in that. So it's a fun one to kind of target. We have another one that people are really uncertainty because we have 2 new running backs. We have Josh Jacobs goes to Green Bay, so he's the new starting running back. And then they draft MarShawn Lloyd, and he is running back 45 going off the board. They still have A.J. Dillon. I'll start out with you on this one, Essie. Where do you see this backfield shaking out? Is it going to be Josh Jacobs' world and MarShawn Lloyd just chilling on the backfield? Or do you see MarShawn Lloyd carving out a role and impacting Josh Jacobs where he's the more valuable back?
I think every year we fade Josh Jacobs for no apparent reason. They're just like, he's not going to do it again, and then he does it again. So they invested. I do you have his contract up? I don't have that up in front of me.
Jacobs' contract? It's 4-year, $48 million. With the way it's structured, they have an out after this year, but it's like $9 million in dead cap hit to take. So it's technically a 1-year deal, but they can do so. It's a longer term deal.
And I'm pretty sure, if I'm not mistaken, he was the highest paid RB this offseason. Like, he got the biggest contract, if I'm not mistaken. So I think they're invested into him. Same thing I've been saying with Najee. Like, if anything, Jacob feels like he's a 30-year-old back because it feels like he's been in the league for so long, but he really hasn't. He's only 26, I think. So he's still in that, like, reached the prime, like not even in his dead zone year where you're talking about like some of the older backs are 28, 27, 28, whatever it may be. So I really think this is Jacob's season. I love the hype on Lloyd. I really love Lloyd coming out. But I think they really got him to learn from Jacobs, not to take over his role or take over some time from him. I think A.J. Dillon will still be that guy here and there, even though A.J. Dillon's looking like an Eddie Lacy type of guy. But I think A.J. Dillon will still be involved in a sense. Where Lloyd, I think they're just kind of mentoring him, and maybe based on his production, will decide on what they want to do with Jacobs. But signing into that, bringing in a veteran back after losing Aaron Jones, a back that can catch the ball, a back that is great between the tackles and outside, Jacobs is poised to have another great top 10, top 12 year, where Lloyd, I think, is a great cuff, but I think he's going to be more so on your taxi squads this year for it. I'm not targeting him in redraft. I just don't see that. And Jacob doesn't necessarily, he got banged up a little bit last year, but for the most part, he's been healthy through his career. So happens every year. I don't know why. He always gets faded, and every year he beats his ADP. So I'm banking on Jacob again this year.
Yeah, I will say last year it fell apart for Jacobs. Like, he was still playing in the offense and everything, but like he regressed heavily on what we saw from the year before when he was one of the top running backs in the NFL. Like, the numbers plummeted. Maybe that was the offense, maybe that was scheme with all the changes that they made. But I think there is a little bit of cause for concern based off of that, because if he is a diminished player, which I mean, he's taking a ton of carries throughout his entire NFL career, so there is workload there. Jeremy, where do you kind of set on Jacobs? Like, is it Jacobs backfield, or are you more interested in MarShawn Lloyd at the cost of like RB37?
Yeah, I'm kind of with SC on this one. I don't think Josh Jacobs. I think it's been much ado about not that much for, that's a poor way of saying it. It wasn't Josh Jacobs' fault last year. We saw everything going on with Devontae Adams, and I forget if there was a camera crew in that locker room during the season or whatever it was, but this is the Josh McDaniels effect. He just absolutely was a complete trash can at the head coaching position. Once they got rid of him, all the players had a sigh of relief. Everyone started to play better, including Josh Jacobs, and then he got hurt toward the end of the season, missed the last 4 games. So I don't really have an issue here with Josh Jacobs leading this backfield. I'm happy to kind of draft him at cost in some cases if I'm taking an RB in that range. For me, I like Lloyd, but SC is 100% right. A.J. Dillon is going to stay involved. You know who led the Packers in carries last season? Because Aaron Jones was hurt. It was A.J. Dillon with 178 carries last season for a 3.4 yards per attempt average, which is atrocious, right? A.J. Dillon is kind of terrible for your fantasy, but he, I think, at least doesn't fumble the ball. Otherwise, I can't think of why he would get so much work. But it wasn't going to be Patrick Taylor. It wasn't going to be Emmanuel Wilson. And the Packers showed you that by drafting MarShawn Lloyd so high and re-signing A.J. Dillon. They had to consciously bring back A.J. Dillon. I don't forget if it's a 1 or a 2 year deal, but he's back. So, yeah. And so that tells you exactly what they think of him. They don't love A.J. Dillon either, but he's going to stay involved. So for me, I agree with SC. It's Josh Jacobs. MarShawn Lloyd, again, I like the shot late. If you want to stash him and see what happens in the first few weeks, Jacobs is one of these backs who, like you mentioned, with the tread on his tires, could get injured. There could be opportunity. I love this offense So I kind of really like the shot more so on Lloyd than on Benson, simply because of the situation Lloyd would be stepping into. But, either way, you're just kind of stashing these guys and praying. I like Jacobs.
Yeah, I think it's interesting they were kind of forced into doing it. Similar to Miami with Mostert, like they had injuries go to other guys, and they didn't trust the other guys on the roster. So they're like, all right, we're defaulting into A.J. Dillon, and we saw how that worked out for them. So I think it's safe to say, like, that A.J. Dillon could get replaced this year. Like, that's entirely possible because he was outside the top 40 in basically every efficiency metric you want to list. And we saw Aaron Jones at the end of the year. Like, Aaron Jones was awesome. He was like, dude, I'm way better than A.J. Dillon. Get A.J. Dillon the hell out of here. So it's interesting they brought him back, but they brought him back for really cheap. Like, it doesn't cost that much money. So, like, I understand why they did. Then the draft showed up, and they're like, all right, MarShawn Lloyd. Let's take MarShawn Lloyd. We got Jacobs. I think it's an interesting running back room. You were going to say something, Essie?
Yeah, I just think out of the first 4 running backs we talked about, Brooks, Benson, Corum, Lloyd, I'd rather take the other 3 in their cuffs than cuff Lloyd with Jacobs. Like, I'm okay taking Jacobs solo because I just don't know where Lloyd fits in. And this is for 2024 for a redraft, right? For Dynasty, go ahead and cuff him because I think Lloyd could have something involved there in the future. But for this season, I don't necessarily see why you necessarily need that cuff for Jacobs. Granted, maybe the injury's more than what we know. But again, they went out and they paid him. If they would have paid him for like a small contract, maybe a 3-year, $18 million or something like that, maybe. But it was a $40 million deal. You said with that year out after this. So that tells me again, hey, we're going to run you into the ground maybe. And then if you show any kind of injury or any kind of thing that's lingering maybe, then we have our out to save ourselves as well. But if not, hey, we have you signed, so we're good. So I really enjoy that, especially we talked about during the offseason, the way the offseason went for the running backs, the free agents. It said a lot about this draft class, and them going after Jacobs for that amount of money says, look, we're comfortable taking you, and we think you're going to be good here with this draft class, and maybe even the next one too. So I do like Jacob this year.
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point on the running backs in general, and particularly Jacobs. Like, they've run basically a kind of 1A, 1B situation in the Packers. As long as we can remember, as long as the floor's been there, like, he's been spinning work. But I think this more speaks to Aaron Jones' skill set. Like, he's not the guy you're going to give 300 touches to. That's not Aaron Jones. Jacobs could theoretically do that. He's done that in the past. I think the lowest touches he's had is like 262 in a season. Like, the guy's gotten fed. So it's interesting where we have a running back room, how they treat it completely different to a player that they're bringing in, and if that's going to change. Now, the fact they drafted Lloyd tells us they like him too. So it's interesting to see how that works for the shakeout. But it's going to be one of the better offenses in the NFL. So I think it's like we want these running backs based in this offense. And if Jacobs is going to be that bell cow, then he's going to be a top 5 back. And it's going to be great. There's only 4 running backs who get more average money per year than Josh Jacobs based on his contract. So, like, it shows you the Packers very much like him. So it's an interesting one to talk about, I think, for sure. With our next running back room, it gets really much because this one's absolutely crowded. It's Jaylen Wright, RB46 in Miami, behind 2 guys that were 2 of the best running backs in the NFL last year, Raheem Mostert, Devon Achane. What the hell are we doing with Jaylen Wright, boys? Somebody explain to me, like, Jeremy, are you in? Are you out? Because I don't see it with Jaylen Wright as much as I like this offensive situation. Like, personally, I'm out there.
No, I'm out. Jaylen Wright, I really liked him in the process, but the only place I even drafted him in my rookie drafts and dynasty drafts was where I had Raheem Mostert, which was, I think, one spot. So, I'm just out on him. It's just, like you mentioned, in this offense, you want those 2 high-powered, high-profile wide receivers because they're almost operating as running backs in the sense of where, they have those guaranteed touches. And then you have 2 running backs ahead of Jaylen Wright. I want nothing to do with him in 2024. He might be an interesting guy to monitor on the waiver wire if you hear any injury concerns and you end up having a bench spot. If you do IR, sure. But I'm not hedging with Jaylen Wright. I don't think, let's say Raheem Mostert gets injured. I think Achane doesn't necessarily step into the Mostert role, but I think he gets those Mostert 1A number of touches. So do I really want Jaylen Wright with an injury who steps into the number 2 level of touches in that offense in the backfield? No, because that means he's like operating as the number 4, maybe number 5 in terms of touches per game. So no, I don't want anything to do with Jaylen Wright. He's going to need 2 injuries to be fantasy viable this season, and I'm not banking on that.
Yeah, it's you will say it's the one offense like you can be getting low volume and be efficient and be valuable because we saw this with Devon Achane last year, right? like in double-digit touchdowns, barely getting double touches a game. And he was just that obviously Wright comes from that Tennessee system, which is just like Mickey Mouse bullshit offense, which is really hard to project in the NFL, and it drives me crazy. SE, where are you at with Jaylen Wright? Is he someone that you're interested in at that cost of going like RB45 or sorry, RB47? Is that kind of what you're looking at, or you're like, nah, I want the other guys in the Miami backfield?
Well, of course, you want the other guys in the Miami backfield just because we've seen it happen, and especially with Alchain and what he did last year in 5 games. If he's healthy, he would have had like 3,000 yards last season if he was healthy all season and stayed up with that par, right? So that would have been absolutely crazy. But am I buying Jaylen Wright? I mean, at that cost, I don't know. Raheem Mostert's 33 years old. Alchain is a smaller back, so I'm not mad at it. If the wide receivers in that range, you're probably looking at maybe your Tyler Boyds and your Gabe Davis, maybe, I don't know, in that range, right? Like around there. So in that, I'm not mad about taking him. The thing is, though, 2024, no, the dynasty for sure. I'm taking him all day because I think he could be great. He fits what Miami likes to do. I really, we talked about Xavier Wardy and the way Mike McDaniels looked at Wardy, like, oh, he's getting him. Well, he saw Jaylen Wright and he was one of the faster running backs. So this fits what they want. The running back we're not talking about, though, that if Raheem and Devon Achane get hurt, is it Jaylen Wright or is it Jeff Wilson? Jeff Wilson plays a role too, right? And he has showed that he can be good in that offense too. So Jeff Wilson might be the late round target you want to acquire outside of the rookie, even though the rookie's the shiny new piece, if you will. But I think Jeff Wilson might technically be that RB3 just because of his familiarity with that offensive system. And that's someone that I think you don't necessarily need a draft. He's probably on your waiver wires, but he's also a good back if the injuries happen. He's not going to start over Raheem or Devon Achane, but I think he definitely will get the first look possibly instead of Jaylen Wright there. So I'd rather take that. But I'm not mad at taking him. You're going to cuff him. Like, I wouldn't take him being like, oh, I want this Miami backfield. I mean, at that point, again, you're trying to trade him to someone there. But if those guys get hurt, any back who comes in, even if he goes Savon Ahmed, if he goes, gets to the carries, he gets to work. Miami knows how to use those running backs. So, I'm not mad. Out of this backfield, I'm out on it on 2024 just because I don't know. Like, Mostert took a lot of the touchdowns away. Alshon got a lot of the yards when he was healthy. So, it's just they're great. But I when it comes to the running backs like that with such a crowded backfield and with the mindset like McDaniels that just knows how to use his running backs in different scenarios, I don't want that confusion in my redraft league, so I stay away from him. And I'm just like, all right, you can do what you gotta do, and that's just me. But I think Achane could be a league winner if he's healthy all season and keeps up to those same kind of carries that he did. Well, I don't know, smaller back, he's gonna get hit. He got like body slammed like a suplex last year or something like that,
really,
right?
Yeah.
So he's like a little boy to these grown men, and don't get me wrong, he's a grown man too. But they're over here suplexing him and stuff like that. So we're right, fits more of the Raheem Mostert role. So really, if Mostert goes down, you could see right like that. But again, I think Jeff Wilson is being the underrated back here, where they see the shiny new piece and they're forgetting what Jeff Wilson did when he was healthy in the offense.
Yeah, they did. Last year, they liked Jeff Wilson so much, they made him inactive for an extra offensive lineman. So I think that kind of tells us where that with Jeff Wilson. I don't think it's going to happen with Jeff Wilson. Maybe it does, but the fact he got basically body slammed off of the start of the lineup, and they're like, nah, we need another lineman. I think it was fun actually going into last year. Like, there was a discussion between Jeff Wilson and Raheem Mostert, and we had no idea how his backfield was going to shake out. Jeff Wilson got hurt. It was a mysterious injury. They didn't report it. And so, of course, people got Raheem Mostert for dirt cheap, like as possibly cheap as you get. And he was the league-winning back we were all hoping that Devon Achane would be. So it's interesting to look back in a year. It's like, dude, it was a legit question. We didn't know. Even the beat reporters had no idea. Yeah, it was Raheem Mostert's year. So it could shake out differently. I think they kind of are like, yeah, we've done the Jeff Wilson experience. He's also old, too. He's not young. Him and Mostert are both like on that age cliff where Mostert's the oldest. Jeff Wilson's pushing 30. Like, those guys are not young. So it's interesting. You have these two young backs. They're promising. With Jaylen Wright, it's efficiency all day. So it's an interesting backfield, I think, to target at that price. It's so valuable.
Yeah, but SC, I totally agree with you with Jeff Wilson. I think he's just a trusted guy. He could be over Jaylen Wright. Should he be? I don't know. I completely disagree with you, though. At cost, I want Achane and Mostert. I don't care. Give me one. Give me both. This for me, we were talking about breakouts earlier. I just wrote up Achane earlier as the breakout candidate. He had 11 touchdowns last season. Surprisingly, just because he was breaking off a ton of big plays. And Mostert had 21. There's room for that to equalize, and there's room for Achane to even take over and overtake Mostert in the number of touchdowns. And I think it's probably unlikely that number of touchdowns goes down for the running back room. Maybe it's more evenly distributed. Maybe Wright gets some. Maybe Wilson gets some. We'll see. But I think Achane scores more touchdowns this year. And what is he, like RB9? I think we said, Jesse, in redraft ADP. I think he's probably RB5-6 when it's said and done if he's healthy.
Yeah, I think it's like, I'm a big Achane fan. So like I was like RB9, I'm paying that cost. I don't mind it. Like the hyper efficient running back going into year 2 is going to see that volume increase. So I think they're going to take some work away from Mostert. And so like he is under contract through 2025, but it's a 1-year dead cap hit in 2025. So technically they could move on. Jaylen Wright could slide into the Raheem Mostert role. And then you have Achane and Mostert long term. Why am I blanking on his name? What the heck? Jaylen Wright. Sorry, folks. You have Achane and Jaylen Wright going in the long term past this year, where it's those two guys is really being the one-two punch of that offense, and just two freakish, hyper athletic, efficient running backs in a fun offense. And like that's what we want. Like I want those guys on my team. So I don't mind. I'm more dynasty than I am redraft. But like if you want to take a shot on them at that point, if you're not in on Mostert or Achane, then yeah, go for it. But I think those guys are better bets.
Draft Mostert too.
Yeah, I mean, if you draft them, I would just, if you're drafting them, try to get all of them, really, because they're all at different tiers in the draft board. And, what Achane did as a rookie, I mean, who's to say Wright doesn't do that too? We talked about him. I think he was our consensus RB5, if I'm not mistaken, or 4.
Yeah.
So he was one of those guys where he showed the elusiveness, how to break the tackles, how to get small between the tackles, and how to actually make yards after contact as well. So what we saw Achane do last year, Wright could be in a similar situation because the defenses don't really know what he's doing at this next level. They really don't have that tape on him like they had on Achane as well rookie season. So we could actually see that happen. So yeah, I love your take on Achane though. I mean, hopefully, again, if he goes out there and balls out, I mean, he could be like Chris Johnson 2.0, just that speed, quick guy that gets through. Not as big as him, but just that speedy back that can get it done. So
yeah, 100% with you. I think another fun backfield that also has a lot of competition in it is the next backfield we're going to talk about, because we don't know what we're doing with this backfield with the Los Angeles Chargers. We have Gus Edwards. We have J.K. Dobbins. They're both injured, by the way. J.K. Dobbins is a severe injury. Gus Edwards dealing with lower body injury. That puts Kimani Vidal as a top 50 running back in redraft. I'm all above the Kimani Vidal trying to have like a 60% freaking having on 60% of my rosters in Dynasty. So I might be the wrong guy to talk about this backfield. So I'm gonna let you guys take it over. SC, how are you feeling about this backfield? Is Kimani Vidal the guy that you're targeting, or are you targeting the other guys?
Oh yeah, man, you target Kimani Vidal all day, and that was before the injuries came in. I just like the system, and we know Harbaugh likes to run the ball. We talked about Blake Corum earlier. Blake Corum, 5'8", 210. Kimani Vidal is like 5'8", 215, 212, something like that. He's a little bit bigger than what Blake Corum was. We know Greg Roman likes to run the block, and he likes those bigger backs that can just go between the tackles and just run and pound, run and ground, all that kind of stuff, whatever you want to say. I'm targeting him all day. I really love what he does, and I think he's going to be a back for them in the future. Maybe not starting, depending on how Gus Edwards and Dobbins, I'm out on. Man, I know there's people that love Dobbins. Dobbins he's one of those what ifs that we're going to ask about, right? Because coming out, he looked great, and it was like, man, he's going to be the next back for the Ravens. Never stayed healthy. Greg Roman liked him enough to say, hey, man, just come with us to L.A. Hopefully, if he's healthy, then shit, he may be the breakout guy that no one's talking about, really, because then it's going to be the people saying, oh, I told you he was. No, he's been injured, so we haven't been keeping an eye on him. But, Gus Edwards, same thing. Just an older back, in that Raheem Mostert type of feel where he's just older and it's like you're just not getting away with him. But Kimani Vidal is going to be that annoying little brother. He's going to be creeping, and then he's going to take that spot away. And I really love I think I'm excited more so because of the offensive system that they're going to run. It's going to change. It's not. I don't have Herbert throwing for over 4,500 yards this year. I think he's going to go down. They're going to play a lot more closer to the chest. And Kimani Vidal can also catch, so he can play the check down role too. He's an all-around back, and people just don't talk about him enough because he went to Troy. Don't scout the helmet, scout the player, and Vidal's an athlete that you want.
Yeah, like I think that's the thing that pops up. Like he's clearly going to be the third down back in this team because Gus Edwards is not a capable third down back. That's not what he does. So
yeah.
I think theoretically, especially if Dobbins is injured, like he has a role from day one and he can improve from there. So, Jeremy, how are you feeling about Vidal's options to be potentially like the league winning back going late? That a guy that could massively exceed his expectations.
Yeah, I'm in on that. I just don't think he's going to be going that late once we get to August, right? We're going to see like what happens with these injuries. I'm totally with you, SC. Like I'm totally out on J.K. Dobbins. I was all in on J.K. Dobbins, even after injury 1 and injury 2, and I just had to bail after this most recent one. It's just too much, and you can't blame the player at that point. It's just the way things shake out. But you mentioned Kimani Vidal's size. He's 5'8", 210. Gus Edwards is 6'1", 238. We know he has his injury issues, but he's a big boy, and he's proven that he can carry the load when healthy. That he can, just pound the ball in there, which is exactly what this offense and this scheme demands of their running back. So can Kimani Vidal do that on first and second down throughout the game, throughout an NFL season in his first season? I'm not so sure. I agree with you, Jesse, that he's likely to get the third down work because the most targets Gus Edwards has ever had in the season is 13, right? So he's not the guy there. So Kimani's on the field right away. That's a check. Great. But unless Gus Edwards is out for an extended period of time, which is very possible, unless that happens, Vidal for me is probably going to be capped. And the nice thing is there's nobody else here that I'm worried about. Dobbins injury, who we got? Spiller, Dotson, who cares? Who else is there in that backfield? So I like Kimani Vidal here probably at cost where he sits right now more than any of these other rookie backs that we talked about, including Brooks.
I think this backfield of Gus Edwards and Kimani Vidal could be what we saw in Raheem Mostert and Devin Austin last year, where it's like Raheem Mostert gets the early work, right? He wears down the defense. And then Kimani Vidal has some juice where he busts out those big plays and makes them, whether it be catching the ball or just running between tackles and breaking them. So I like that mindset of what they are. And I'm really excited to see what he could do this season. And yeah, I'm buying him all day.
Yeah, I think with Gus, it's interesting because he's getting older. And he has dealt with injuries throughout his career. Like, he wasn't the most efficient back last year in Baltimore, even such a good scheme. Like, when you look at his numbers and kind of zoom out, like, his evaded tackles, yards per touch, none of that was in the top 20. Breakaway run rate was only 4%. So he really – I don't think he has the juice in that offense. Like, he's the grinder type, and especially he's starting to age out. Like, he's not going to break those wrong runs. So this is where Vidal comes in, and he could be, like you're talking about, the efficient guy in a limited role and give you – and theoretically, like, even last year, Edwards was only top 32 in points per game basis. Like, he's not giving you a ton of fantasy points. And if we're talking about a guy that's going to catch passes in a Justin Herbert offense, who, by the way, has checked down a lot throughout his career, will probably check down. Part of that's Eckler, I get it, but like he's still checked down. So there's room for Vidal in this offense too. Like carve out a role and be something important. Now the floor is 0 because he's 6th round. Like, you know what I'm saying? So the floor is 0, but the upside is tantalizing. We're not paying him premium cost for him. It's like the last round of your redraft pick. So it's like, you know what? Why not fire the dart and see how it goes? It's a fun offense, right?
I agree.
And Gus Edwards, I think, is more so the safety. Like Greg Roman brought him over saying, hey, man, I know you know my offense. Cheats the younger back. Like, I don't think it's like you're our guy moving forward. I mean, granted, he probably said that to him, but it's more so you're the safety net. I know I can roll out with you week 1. You know what plays, you know how to run the offense too. You can also help Herbert, because you're a veteran that you can help Herbert understand the offense even better, even though they said Herbert has the IQ of, what's his name? Einstein, just genius on the field, right? So, but I think he's just, that safety net for him to say, hey, we're going to bring in some new backs and I need you to help them lead because you're just, what to do.
Yeah, 100%. Like, I think it's at that price. I'm all in. I'm like, if you're going to tell me I got to spend round 15, pick on him in redraft, like fire that up. Let me do that every freaking time. So I think it's interesting because he's going above a guy that a lot of people liked in Ray Davis, who's going into Buffalo to kind of take over the role of another aging running back who had a role last year and basically was like the oldest back in the league. Now we have another guy that's younger replacing his role to play alongside James Cook. Where are we kind of at Ray Davis? Because ever since he's been drafted, he's kind of just gone under the radar, but even though people liked him in the process. Do you see him carving out a decent role next to James Cook in the Josh Allen offense? Because like we want pieces in the Josh Allen offense. Does Ray Davis have some upside for you guys?
Go ahead, Jeremy. What do you think on Davis?
Yeah, I love Ray Davis. I think he did everything, he proved everything that you wanted him to prove throughout the pre-draft process. The tape looks good. He's not a top level back in this weaker running back class, but I think he's a serviceable NFL back. And if you look at what Latavius Murray was able to do over the last year, in Buffalo, that guy just won't die, because I think he's like 35 years old during his 35-year-old season here this year. But yeah, Ray Davis, I think, can do at least what Latavius was doing, who got 80 touches, last year, who caught a little bit out of the backfield, 22 targets, 17 receptions, right? And that James Cook workload, I think, was probably a little bit too high. As much as it pains you, Jesse, to hear that, because if I'm doing some quick math here, he had 200 and just about 280, a little over 280 touches last season between his 44 receptions and 239 carries. That's too much for James Cook. I think they need to scale that back just a little bit, right? We don't want to see too much of that go away for fantasy purposes, but I think you give Ray Davis a little bit more of that here. He's a nice option, especially around the goal line. We know James Cook has not been an effective goal line back. So if you're giving me the goal line back, I mean, look, I've heard this a bunch, especially from you, Jesse, that Josh Allen is the goal line back. I think Buffalo's been trying for a few years to scale that back. Hasn't worked yet. But if they're able to do it and Ray Davis can pull some of those touchdowns, he can get a little first and second down work, spell James Cook. He could be a serviceable guy towards the end of the season. So, I'm interested.
100%. It makes sense. I know I've been a big James Cook fan, but he does have holes in his game. He's not the perfect complete back. There is issues. I think this is where Ray Davis actually fits in really well, is because he has better vision than James Cook has, and he could run kind of the duo, which is what they like. They run a lot last year. I think they were near the league leaders in that run team, and that's where Ray Davis fits in. Where are you kind of at with Ray Davis? I see, do you like him at that cost, or are you kind of just going to fade inside James Cook backfield?
Yeah, at that cost. I mean, but I think it depends if I'm drafting James Cook or not, because I think this is a prime cuff that you want. I wouldn't necessarily take Ray Davis solo dolo. I definitely agree with Jeremy where he says, they're going to run less with James Cook just because he is a smaller back. But the thing is, with them not really having any established weapons on the offensive side outside of maybe Kincaid, but even Kincaid, coming off 1 year, is he established yet, or is this gonna be the year where he established himself, right? So I think they're gonna use Cook more in that passing offense. Davis is an older back too. He's 24 and he already has a lot of wear and tear on him because he was a bell cow back at 3 different colleges in his collegiate career. So I like Davis. You mentioned goal line back. I mean, like you said, Josh Allen is that guy. I do think he gets a lot of carries, like 120, 100, something like that, where you're going to get James Cook into your 190, maybe just over 200, if that. But also it depends on how elusive James Cook is in the running game. Like if he's out there and balling, then why are you going to bring in Davis you're just bringing him to relieve him? But I think it will be a little bit closer, but because of that closeness, it's not close enough where I'm gonna take Ray Davis by himself. I do like what he has. I think they got him to be a between the tackles type of runner, even though he does have some speed to break out as well. But Cook is still the all-around back that they want for that offense. He can run 2 tackles. He can catch checkdowns from Josh Allen. He can even be out in the slot. He's so quick and doing stuff like that. So I'm probably out on Davis, but again, unless I'm drafting James Cook, I think that's a solid cuff, probably one of your best cuffs, because I think there is going to be somewhat of a split carry in there, maybe 55-45 split difference like that.
Yeah, I think he's a contingent upside guy. Like we saw in college, he had 3 different schools. He had over 200 touches, 2 in the SEC as well. So he was going against competition. Yeah, he is older and stuff like that. So they don't have to wait on him. Like if you're an older back, you need to come and contribute right away because age is a factor. You're putting Bishop 24 to 25. You got to do it now. And I think it actually works to kind of transition to another older back that we're talking about. And it's a guy in a situation we don't really know about. And this is with the Giants, Tyrone Tracy. He's RB 56, it looks like, right next to Bucky Irving. We'll talk about next. But Tyrone Tracy going against basically Eric Gray, who I've heard hype for, who was abysmal last year, and Devin Singletary, who was good in Houston coming over to a new scheme. Where are you guys standing out with Tyrone Tracy being another day 3 back? But the situation seems about as wide open as any running back could possibly have because people aren't really into Singletary and Aaron Gray was abysmal. So Are we in on Tyrone Tracy like late mid 50s at RB, or are we kind of just letting it just play out and see how it goes because it's more than likely a terrible offense?
I'm in on Eric Gray, man. I like Eric Gray coming out. I know people aren't heavy on him because he wasn't there, but let's be real. They had Saquon Barkley. So, I mean, did you want anyone else in that backfield outside of Barkley? I don't think so. I mean, that was all you needed, right? So, Eric Gray, when he was at Oklahoma, his final year, he broke out, had, I think, over 1,300 yards, if I'm not mistaken. And then the thing is, I think when we look at running backs, we want the running back that has that juice, that has that explosiveness. Eric Gray's not really that kind of guy. He's more of a patient runner. He has some pretty good footwork, but he's not really the speedy, explosive type of back as you're seeing some of these other guys. Tyrone Tracy comes in a once upon wide receiver, transition to a running back, so that makes sense. He could be the third down back. Singletary looked good in Houston last year, but all these running backs are not going to be what Saquon Barkley is, regardless. But I do like Eric Gray. I do think he has a bigger role than what he had last year, and I think you're going to see a lot more usage of him for it. Out of this backfield, am I targeting anyone to necessarily be one of my stars? No, I think these are all like bye-week fillers, even with Singletary in the year he had. And you're hoping for a breakout from either Gray or Tyrone Tracy. But I do think people are dismissing Eric Gray just because one of those shiny new toys, if you will, with Tyrone Tracy, where he looked great, always pass catch you back. He's everything you want in these running backs nowadays, dual threat type of guy. Eric Gray's still a good between the tackles type of runner, waits for his blocks, knows how to do it. So I think that usage could come from him. So out of the backfield, though, I'm probably not taking any of them, to be honest.
Totally get it. That offense is a little more than likely on the struggle bus, right? So
yeah,
you can make that case. Jeremy, are you in on this backfield at all? Like, does Tyrone Tracy intrigue you, or are you just like, nah?
No, I'm with SC. I was banking on Rasheen Ali in rookie drafts over Tyrone Tracy because you just don't know what you're going to get. There is some intrigue here. Tracy's a converted wide receiver. He has those chops for sure. He could be used out of the backfield. We know Devin Singletary is fine as a receiving back, but he's nothing special. Tracy could be special, but I don't care in this offense. I want Malik Neighbors. I'll take a shot late on Wan'Dale Robinson, just in case he soaks up a ton of targets from the slot. Otherwise, and Daniel Jones at cost is kind of nice. Maybe not in redraft single QB, but if you're in a super flex league, at cost, he's nice. Otherwise, no chance. Tracy is just a dart throw, and you're not going to know. I think he's going to be one of these guys who becomes, if he does get the usage, he's still going to be a boom best guy, especially in a poor offense. So you're just not going to know when to play him. It's going to be probably as frustrating as Taysom Hill, where 1 week, he gets 70% of snaps and scores 40 fantasy points. You're like, oh, I got to play him. And then the next 3 weeks, he just puts up goose eggs because, Dabble is doing some, Josh McDaniels nonsense and scheming for different teams and things like that. So yeah, I'm out on, Neighbors, maybe Wan'Dale, maybe Danny Jones. That's it for me on the Giants.
Yeah, I think the way it more than likely shakes out in this offense is because you were talking about Eric Grady's not being the super, the explosive running back. I think that's Tracy is the guy that gives them that injective offense. But, theoretically, being the former wide receiver, he's more than likely a third down back alongside with Singletary, who I get it with Singletary. The juice is not there, but the guy's been a consistent NFL running back his entire career. He does enough where coaches trust him. He's more than likely on the field. Now, I like the upside shot on Tracy if you want to do it, or you want to go with Gray because we talk about this, but it's more than likely similar to what James Cook was dealing with his rookie year. With Gray or Tracy, they're playing the 1B role where they're kind of complementing Singletary, and more than likely you need an injury. And I mean, at this cost, it possibly happens. And then it's a battle of who's winning it out. Personally, I think you should bet on the rookie because it's unproven. They don't know where they saw it last year with Gray. But we saw reports come out where Gray's pushing work with the starters. So at this point in time, it seems like Gray's ahead of Tracy. So they don't have any connection to Tracy. It's a day 3 guy. They drafted Gray a little bit earlier the year before. So there's a little bit more connection there. But yeah. With that said, how high is the upside in this offense? And that's what we're talking about. So one buddy's going to need volume to be successful, and I don't know if that happens. We'll go to our last running back, and that's the guy who I was high on until the combine, and then I was like, oh, this isn't going to work out. And then he goes to possibly the most ridiculous landing spot where, how is this going to work out for you? This is Bucky Irving. going to Tampa Bay with Rachaad White, who Rachaad White's a better receiving back. Like, he's not going to get that role for him. So then you're basically expecting him to be the runner to run early down grinder work, and it's like he's not going to get goal line work. So, all right, Jeremy, try and talk me into Bucky Irving if you can. Like, is there upside for him, or are you just like, sorry, man, just sometimes you get cooked?
No, this is the guy I could not do anything with once we hit the combine. Jesse, you were the only person like hyping me up on Bucky Irving to the point where I was like interested, and we heard the hype elsewhere for sure. But once you lost faith, Jesse, it was done for me. I had no chance. There was no way Bucky Irving was coming back in my good graces here. It's not going to happen in Tampa, and this should have been a good landing spot for one of these guys like a MarShawn or a Trey Benson. Like, we wanted those guys here in Tampa Bay because we wanted to see somebody that could handle the load. Bucky Irving's likely not that guy. Rachaad White has done enough to be capable. He doesn't really fumble the ball. He can catch it if it's in his vicinity. These are glowing reviews of I can't even think of his name, Rachaad White, by the way. So yeah, Bucky Irving, I think, is like a poor man's Rachaad White. He goes into backup Rachaad White. They got Sean Tucker there. Who cares? They just have a crap ton of wide receivers and a mediocre quarterback who at least can deliver the ball on time. So they're just going to throw the crap out of the ball. And, Bucky Irving this year, no. Bucky Irving in the future, probably not. If they're smart, they're going to draft somebody or bring somebody in next year. So I'm out.
All right, Essie, you're the Oregon guy, and I know you saw him up close and personal. Give me the pitch on Bucky Irving, or are you also just like, nah, it's not happening? I'm hoping I get something from you on this.
No, I mean, well, the pitch on him is he's a good back. If you're having a system that does the check down and everything, he has an 84% catch rate when it comes to targets towards him. So you really love to see that. The issue is not necessarily on the talent. It's you have a bigger, stronger, better back that does exactly what he does. If this was like if he went to really anywhere we talked about prior to, if he went to Carolina, if he went to Arizona, if he went to Green Bay or even the Rams, I would have been like, hey, you can be in on Bucky Irving because he could be the third down back. But Rachaad White has the frame to be a 3-down back. He has the pass catching ability to be a third down back. He has everything they need, so it's not Bucky. So I will say this on Bucky. If you're in a league where kick return yards matter, because of the new kick return rules, we may see a lot more usage or benefit from him because I think that's going to be more of where he might be as that special teams kick returner, punt returner kind of guy. And that's where his value could come in. But as far as like being RB2, RB3, RB4 for your team, no, I'm out. I just don't. There's just no world unless something happens to Rachaad, and we don't want that. We don't want injuries or anything like that. Unless something happens to him, then I'm in on him. But I'm not going to take that dart throw again unless you have a league that's heavy on kick returns, all that kind of stuff. But it just doesn't. Them even drafting him doesn't even make sense. Like, why not? That says more on Sean Tucker than it says with Rachaad White. Like, all right, Sean Tucker isn't the guy we wanted him to be, so we brought in another guy just to be a filler in here, a breather here and there. But at fantasy purposes, I don't think there's much upside for him as a running back because again, Rachaad White something has to happen where he's not playing. But even then, he's a smaller back, didn't really have the 40 speed. He has game speed for sure. He knows how to elude his tackles. His catch rate is good, but again, Rachaad White is the bigger back that does everything he does. So there's no sense in trying to buy into him. I'm out on him. He'll probably be on your waivers in redraft, and you can hope you outbid those players. But for Scott Fish, we other Scott Fish will draft. Kick return yards matter. So Bucky may be your late round target, like your last round pick, to go in the hopes that he becomes that kick returner and actually does use his skill set in eluding tackles and getting those yards and possibly a couple kick return touchdowns.
Yeah, I think the case on him is he's a better interior rusher than Rachaad White. So, like, his better missed tackles force, like, he has a better profile coming out. So I think he could play, like, it's weird. They're flipped on what you want these guys to be. You would want Rachaad White to be the grinder. You want Bucky Irving to be the pass catcher in this offense, kind of how they're built. But they're literally, like, reverse engineered of how they should be built. So it's the hardest thing to do. But Rachaad White's just a better pass catcher, and he has a better profile coming out. It's been a good, receiving back. So it's really weird and unfortunate for Bucky that he lands in this situation. But sometimes this is what happens. So, like, to Essie's point, I think he needs an injury more than anything else to be someone you could trust in a matchup because he's more than likely going to be like an 8 to 10 touch guy tops in the league with Rashad White healthy. And it's just really hard on particularly an offense not as good as Miami. Like it's really hard for those guys to matter, and they're not going to get touchdowns. So I think there's one other offense we can like kind of hit on, even though this guy's not being drafted. Basically, he's well beyond 200. This is Audric Estime in Denver.
Good.
Now he's already dealt with injuries and stuff, so there is that aspect of it as well. But like, good luck with this offense. Like, I'll start with USC. Who are you targeting this offense? Because dude, there's like 8,000 guys in this offense. We got a rookie, we got a joker, Jaleel McLaughlin, we got Javonte, who's just been dealing with injuries nonstop.
And 2 rookies. Yeah. Got 2 rookies in this offense.
And Blake Watson too. I know we hyped up on our previous show. Let's kind of hit both. I guess make the case for either one of these guys on if you're drafting them or if you're taking them in the Denver offense.
Man, if you want me to go, I'm drafting Blake Watson. That's my guy. Undrafted rookie. He's an undrafted diamond. You will find diamonds in the rough. I think he is. Bucky Irving was Bo Nix's running back last year. Bo Nix knows how to check down and get those running backs. You can say it's Jaleel McLaughlin if you want. But I think Blake Watson may be the guy. I think they really found someone, especially from a Memphis system, that knows how to produce running backs. He has a consistent catches in his college career. He's consistently shown he can get that pass catching back. He's consistently shown he can actually be a workhorse back as well and get the carries also. So I really love Blake Watson here. Estime is good, but a lot of it comes down to really what is Javonte's injury lingering. We saw him come back, have a pretty okay year past that injury this past year. But is it going to be something that in the year 2 post injury that's still lingering there? Out of it, I don't want to take the other guys at cost. So that's why I'm saying take Blake Watson because he's undrafted. You could get him very late, last round, even off your waivers there. Estime is good. He knows how to break your tackles. He knows how to get in between as well. I just don't know if he's going to outbeat Javonte Williams, where I think Blake Watson can outbeat McLaughlin and be your third down back kind of deal. So that's why I'm saying I would rather take him. It's a messy backfield. I think this year they are going to play with Bo Nix's strength, which is just doing checkdowns. He does have the arm to make some good throws, but that's where, top 2 guys I would say are McLaughlin and Watson for me in that offense.
Yeah. I think to your point, Denver did lead the league in running back targets last year. Like this has been a Sean Payton staple. He's always had guys who have earned targets in that backfield. So like if you like Watson to be that guy, then yeah, absolutely. I like McLaughlin was good last year, but he got phased out of the offense down the stretch, which is the interesting part. Like you look at his efficiency, it's awesome, but he's a small back. It's really hard for small backs to make that headway. So Jeremy, where are you kind of looking at between these 2 rookie running backs?
Yeah, no. It's not even these guys. It's not even these guys so much. Number one, it's Sean Payton. He's just so fickle with what he wants to do. And like you said, yeah, if he's got an all-star like Kamara and an all-star quarterback, a Hall of Fame quarterback in Drew Brees, then he's just going to let him do whatever the hell he wants to do. And if he wants to throw it to Kamara 300 times a game, that's what he's going to allow. Here, we have a situation. We have a rookie quarterback. We have they took their best receiver and sent him away. Not that he was a great receiver, but Jerry Jeudy's gone. Cortland Sutton was great with Russ, but Russ is gone, right? So we don't know what the hell's happening. Is Dulcich going to matter when he comes back, right, in terms of targets? Is Mims going to be allowed on the field? We don't know what the hell this is going to look like. And when you look at this backfield, Javonte Williams, like you said, coming off of injury, I'm out on Javonte at cost. I don't care. That cost can never be too low for me. I'm just completely out on Javonte no matter where he ends up going. Estime just had his knee scoped a couple of weeks ago. He'll be ready for training camp. If you look at a picture of Audric Estime, he is not invited to the Quad Father group chat. This guy, he needs to get in the gym and work on his lower half a little bit more. This guy is just like all top heavy. And yes, he can run in between the tackles. He's a big body for sure. But I want to see somebody with a little bit more quad in there. I want to see those pictures come out. I want those AJ Dillon quad pics. If my running back is only going to get 3.5 yards per carry, so 3.5 yards per carry from Estime and no quads, I'm out completely. I like Jaleel at cost. He's interesting, but I'll sell him too. Watson, fine. He's a dart. The answer is just no. I'm trying to think of anybody I would want from this team. Troy Franklin, maybe. I'll take a shot. That's about it in redraft.
And this, we're not even talking about the other guy on the roster who was second in targets at the running back position. Samaje Perine's still on the roster. So that's another guy that, by the way, he's been a good pass catcher in this offense. So good luck to however you see this shaking out. The way I think at it is like, this is a running back room to just target late. You throw a dart on one of the guys. If they hit, cool. If not, you just drop them. Because like that's more than likely what happens. So, and maybe some guy steps forward. And if you just particularly don't want to pay Javonte, then yeah, go for it. Because I literally just, I'd rather stay away from this offense if I can. I don't think Bo Nix is that good. I don't trust Sean Payton's scheme. So yeah, I'm out on Denver. Like that's just not for me. Like I'll have very little exposure to Denver in redraft, dynasty, all that fun stuff. But I'm also lower than Trey Benson too. So
watching last year with the Memphis Tigers, 9 yards per catch. 53 receptions for 408 yards. You talked about Alvin Kamara and what Sean Payton likes. Again, I think that's where you can have Watson become that kind of satellite back and be effective for him. Again, playing to Bo Nix's strength. I mean, to be honest, we're talking about what we want in this offense. I mean, you talked about them. I want the 3 rookies. If I'm getting them, at cost, I'll take a dart throw on Bo Nix. Why not? And then Franklin, he gets his top receiver from Oregon. And now you have a back that is – had a little bit more juice than what Bucky Irving did too. So, I really like what they can do there. But yeah, there's a messy backfield. I mean, Samaje Perine, low key, you can get him at nothing too, and he could be a plug and play player if you need him.
Yeah, I think the way Watson gets on the field is he has to basically yeet Samaje Perine right off the field. Like he has to take his job is the way it works out for him. Maybe it does happen, but like it's just with these undrafted backs, it's really difficult path because they have to be substantially better. So, and if he is substantially better, we'll start hearing that drumbeat the closer we get to the season where it's like, oh, by the way, Blake Watson's doing this in practice. So I think this is just a running back room to monitor. And like, if you want to pick them up. Like you'll hear as we get towards the end of the season, the beginning of the season, we'll have a good idea of who it is, who it's not, who we should be targeting. Because right now, like, I'm just like, dude, good luck figuring it out. But Scott Fishbowl, yeah, like it's 22 rounds. Like you could draft a couple of these guys, hope they hit. And if not, you can drop them and move on. So yeah, it's just it's interesting backfield, right? So it's like I think we've covered all of our rookie running backs today. Like I don't see any other ones. Maybe there's another couple of guys we're missing, but I think that's gonna wrap it up for this episode because we're over an hour at this point. That is what we do. We run long. We love to chat it up. We're degenerates. We love this. So well, thank y'all for stopping by to this episode of the Rookie Running Backs 2024. We got Aaron. I guess we're not leaving yet because here comes Aaron. 1 second, we gotta fix this because we only have 3 spots. So there he is. What's up, dude?
No, you could have left. I didn't know you guys were still live. I went to post something in the group chat and I said, why the fuck aren't these guys answering? And then I looked at them like, oh shit, they're still live. I just got home. So
yeah, we're just wrapping it up. So
what up?
Yeah, you don't have to wait around for me. An hour and 7 minutes. You guys have done your part. You're good.
All right, cool.
We're done.
All right. So with our guest appearance from Aaron, the 4 summer here together. But yeah, let's gonna wrap it up. Make sure y'all like, subscribe. The 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. That's us, baby. We love it.
Of the universe.
We got a bunch of stuff coming out on the website, on YouTube, on TikTok, every place, Twitter, and whatever you want to be, we'll be there. So make sure you stay forward to that as we move towards the season. So for Esty, for Jeremy, for Aaron, I'm Jesse. And yeah, we'll see y'all later on this week. So take care, folks.